So, welcome. My name is Hayley. I am a digital advisor with Business Station, and I'm here to talk about how to make your website stand out in a crowded marketplace. If you have any questions as we go, please feel free to jump into the chat box. If you're not familiar with where that is, if you're on a laptop or a desktop, the bottom of your Zoom screen, there should be a little chat icon. And if you click on that, you'll be able to just write a message. You can raise your hand as well to interrupt and ask a question if you need to. This is quite a high-level overview of what you need to consider when designing a website or even redesigning a website or making updates to content on your website. It's really some principles that allow your website to exactly what it says, to stand out, essentially. You'll find as we go along that it's not just about what happens on your website, it's also about what happens off-site as well. So let's dive in. Hopefully this all works as it should. I'll just make sure this is functioning. Alrighty. Hopefully you can see my screen there, how to make your website stand out in a crowded marketplace. So what I want to do is talk about just some terms that you might have heard of as you running your business and working online, and what they mean, what they actually represent in the online dictionary, I suppose. All right, so when we talk about standing out on your website, when we talk about anything to do with online, we're never just referring to one single channel online. Well, in my case, I never am. I'm always talking about your website, your social media, everything you do holistically. And that's what we need to consider with designing a site. So we're thinking about what happens off-site and what happens when people are actually on our website. So you may have heard of these terms, the first one being outbound marketing. So this is essentially what we would consider the traditional approach to the traditional way of telling people about our business or our service or our product. It's also considered advertising. So we're talking about TV ads, radio ads, print ads, newspapers, magazines, etc., billboards on the side of the road, even picking up the phone and calling people that you've never met before, cold calling. These are always, or typically, telling people about what it is that we do. Since online has been around for quite a number of years now, there's a new way of telling people about what we do, and it's not so much about telling people what we do, but it's about how we attract customers to our business organically. So you'll see there's things like content marketing, that's videos, blogs, just sharing information, that kind of thing. So also social media, using social media to get our message out there, to make people aware of who we are, to build community around our business or our brand. And then the search engine optimization as well, involved in inbound. So I talk a lot about inbound marketing practices, and it's really it's a term that a lot of people don't really understand what it means, but it really is about creating valuable content that people enjoy being involved in, enjoy being engaged in, and want to be engaged in. And it's about building a community or a tribe, if you like, around what your brand or your business represents, essentially. So a couple of key differences between outbound marketing and inbound marketing. You can read for yourself here what it says. But the thing that I really want to identify is it really is just what I said. It's valuable, it's educational. It really invites people to want to engage with you. And that couldn't be in the form of, using video, using social media, writing blogs, that kind of thing, but sending emails, inviting people to get to know your business or your brand more. And screens, well, you can come back and watch this this webinar at any time, but also if you want a copy of this screen to understand the key differences yourself, or to be able to refer back to those key differences, let me know and I'm happy to pass them on to you. All right, so also when we're talking about online, we're talking about how we want to understand how we invite people to do business with us. So you may have heard of a sales funnel or a marketing funnel. And what that essentially is understanding where your customers are at in their journey of not just knowing your business or your brand, understanding your product or your service. And we all jump into this funnel at different stages. So it could be the three main parts of the funnel are the attract, the engage, and the conversion stages of a funnel. And what they essentially mean is when people come across our brand or business, they come across at different phases in this funnel. And if they're in the attract phase, that essentially means that they're just learning about us. They're learning about our business. They're learning about our service. They're learning about how that benefits their lives. They're not yet ready to engage. They're not yet ready to go to that next step. They're still looking for information. They're very kind of passively consuming. They're not loyal to a specific brand either at this point. They're just wanting more information to support the reason behind why they're looking for this. When they're in the engaged phase of the sales funnel or the marketing funnel, these people, they've done the research, they've got the information, they know what it is that they're looking for, and they like what your brand or your business represents. They're actually wanting to commit a little bit to you. Doesn't mean they're necessarily ready to buy, but they want to hear more from you. The conversion phase is they have actually committed to purchasing. They like what you stand for. They know the information. They know what you represent. They know how you solve the problem that they're looking for, and they're ready to convert. So they're ready to buy. Sorry, these are the three main different stages of the sales funnel. And when we're wondering how do we talk to people, how do we reach people, how do we get more likes on our social media, we need to remember with our content who it's talking to with the message that we're putting out there. So are we talking to those in the attract phase? Are we talking to them at the engage stage, or are we talking to them at the conversion stage? And we can talk to all of them, and we do need to talk to all the people in the different stages of the funnel, but we need to be able to clearly identify for ourselves in the content that we're producing in our website, how that content is tailored towards those different stages. And I am going to dive into explaining this in more detail very shortly, but I just want to give that brief overview of what these different terms are and what they mean to you when doing anything online. So if you need me to explain anything in more depth, please let me know in the chat box, because I'm quite happy to. But that's an overview of what a sales funnel is. All right, so how do you talk to different people in these different stages? How do you use inbound marketing? How do you use your website to attract your customers and to stand out as as the idea is? So one of the first things we need to do is we need to know what our brand represents. Okay, so when I'm saying know your brand, it's understanding more than just I've got a logo. It's knowing the values of your brand. It's knowing the personality of your brand. It's the identity of your brand. So I work with a lot of small businesses, a lot of entrepreneurs in designing brands and designing websites as well. And one of the things that comes up time and time again is this is something that can be highly overlooked. It's understanding, it's the brand identity, and it's understanding what that means to you and what you mean within your brand. And in my mind, it's one of the most important elements required in creating anything online. And once we understand this, once we have this honed for ourselves, for our own business, it makes everything else that we do online so much easier, because we're not having to create from scratch every time we create a social media post, or every time we add content to our website. We've got a framework that we can work within. So your brand identity, as I said, is more than just your logo. It's the colours that you choose for your brand. What are those colours? You can spend a lot of time and a lot of money, working this out, or you can do it very quickly if you already have a good understanding of it. You can jump online and look up brand archetypes, which will give you a good idea of how to use colours according to what your brand is about. Also understanding the different fonts that you want to use to represent your brand. Now, this is really, really breaking down a whole lot of work that any brand strategist does. It's really simplifying it. There is a lot of work and a lot of psychology that goes into creating a brand. But just if you're doing this on a budget and you're doing it yourself, these are just some bare minimum things that, it's really essential that you get clear on. So knowing what your colours are, knowing what the different fonts that you want to use to represent your brand, and being consistent with your use of those in if it's print, if it's social media is a bit tough because we're limited to what the platform gives us. But with your website, any kind of marketing collateral, making sure that font and colours are consistent across all of that. Knowing how you want to be represented visually as well, like the different types of photography, videography that you use. So whether you want, there's all different types of filters out there that we can access these days. So you might want more of a vintage feel. You want to present more classically, I suppose, or you might want really sharp modern imagery. So getting really aware of that for yourself and what that means for your brand. Are you using illustrations or graphics as well? What are those illustrations? What kind of design do you use? And being consistent with that across all that you do as well. The other thing that I think is just so essential, which often doesn't get considered at all, is the language and tone of how you speak to people. What am I trying to say here? Often, there was this once upon a time there was this very corporate approach to how we, as businesses, put our message out there. It was very corporate. So it was kind of a little bit cold, a little bit disconnected, but it was very much the norm and people just accepted it as it was. Now with online and people using it to promote their brands and using it in a way that is about building community around their brands, we've become a lot more personal, which is fantastic, I think. So understanding where you sit on that scale, I suppose. What is the tone of voice that you use? What's the language that you use? And when we understand this again for ourselves, it allows us to connect with those people who we're building a community for. So it dispels anyone who isn't going to relate to that language and just connect straight with the heart or the minds of those people who speak that same language. So getting really clear on that it just takes so much hard work out of writing content when you actually get to the point of writing content. And it's the same thing for messaging as well. So once you understand that, the language and tone of voice that you want to use, it makes that messaging so much easier to create and craft. And then also knowing what kind of style your brand identifies with. Is it more, are you innovative and is simple design or more classic or traditional or contemporary? Understanding that for yourself as well. So getting these things sorted before you even start building your website or redesigning your website or making any changes to your website, having a really clear understanding of this will help you tenfold. Once we know what our brand represents, who we are, the next thing to identify is who our customers are. So again, there's a lot of work involved in actually narrowing this down, but just some basic things for you to think about are who's your customer, and understanding what their interests are as well, what their interests, what their values are, what they like to do, how they like to spend their time. I've got myself different worksheets that you can access if you'd like, which talk about your buyer persona, creating an avatar of what who your ideal customer is. And again, oftentimes people think, okay, well, anyone can use my product, anyone can use this service. I'm here for everyone. And while that's true that anyone can, when we actually identify who it is that we're talking to, who that person who is most likely to want to use our product or to engage in our service, it allows us to talk directly to them in using that language and messaging that they understand, and they can relate to and connect with immediately. And when you do that, it's not that you remove anyone else from doing business with you. What it does is it makes your message really clear because you know who your ideal customer is. And also understanding, another part of it is understanding what their pain points are and how you help solve those. That's a really, really important part of understanding who your customer is. What are their pain points and how does your product or service or your brand or your offering solve that problem? And when you get your head around that, again, as I will continue to say throughout this webinar, it makes crafting the content so much simpler for you. All right, let's talk about how to create content. Okay, so when we're talking about content, creating the content for your website or for your social media, I also like to think of this as quite holistic. So I never think about social media as separate or different or an aside to my website or to a website if I'm designing one. I want to think about how they all work together harmoniously to create a very clear identity for my brand. So there's various types of content, and that includes video, images, audio, words, like in a blog, that kind of thing, podcasts, YouTube, videos, all of those things. These are all content. A single social media post on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok even, these are all different types of content. I'm going to, okay, now I will talk about this. Okay, so why is content important, and why is having all of this detail, having an understanding of this is really important for you? This is taken from Chidio, and this is last year, these stats are. And basically what it tells you is last year, 77% of shoppers spent more time researching purchases than the previous year. And their top 3 resources that informed them about the solution that they were looking for were the vendor website, so that's the brand's website, doing web searches and review sites as well were quite high. And 97% of shoppers find the relevance of the company's content important while making a purchase decision. So this really validates what I'm saying. It's not just about having a product that solves the problem. It's about supporting how that product solves the problem with the content that you create, with the way that your website's designed, with the way that your social media is put together, to really allow people to feel that connection with you before making the purchase decision. I'm going through this quite quickly, but we are going to go back and look at this in more detail once we get through all the main points. So when we're talking about website design, these are some things that you need to remember. And I'm not quite sure where everyone is at in their website journey here. If you want to put in the chat box, let me know. If you're just thinking about starting a website, if you have a website, if you're just understanding how to make it work for you, do let me know. But right here, when I can't speak today. When designing a website, these are things that I like to consider before I even get started. So firstly, what are the main objectives of the site? Now, the main objective can vary depending on what it is that what service we're providing or product that we're providing, but it's not necessarily about getting more sales. It could be about providing information that encourages people to sign up to an email list, to get newsletters from us weekly, and we might want to send out newsletters because we understand that the purchase decision isn't as simple as just looking at the website, so we need to nurture people through what our product or service is. So that could be an objective. It could be that we want people to pick up the phone and call us to make an appointment. It could be that we want people to book online to make an appointment. It could be, yes, that we want to get people to actually purchase a product on the website. There's various objectives to what a website is about. So we need to identify that first and foremost. Then we need to understand what problem is being solved through our website as well. And this goes back to understanding your buyer or your buyer persona. So what are their pain points? What are the problems that they have that your business solves? So we need to understand that as well. And then I like to define the user journey or the user experience. This is as well. So this is how essentially the user experience is about how you get someone who lands on your site to navigate through the site to get to the objective, basically. So if our aim is to get people to sign up for a newsletter, how does that look on the website? You have to understand this. What's the process? And of course, a lot of it is, if you're working with a web designer, ideally they have some idea of what that user journey looks like, and can help build the site around that. But for your own understanding, it's, how does that look? How does it feel for you? And when you use a website, how do you navigate through it? How do you go from, okay, if I want to purchase a product, what are my habits on the website that I'm looking at to get me to purchase that product? So those are things that all make up what the user journey is. And then also, what are the call to actions? So, and the call to actions, or CTAs, as they're abbreviated to, are about, getting people to hit that button, the call now button, the book now button, the buy now button, the learn more. Those are the call to actions. When we're prompting people on our site to go to the next step, we need to consider what they are. And this is where using language is also really important. Like, how do you guide someone to the next step? What words do you use to guide them to that next step? And if you understand the language and messaging that your brand is about, you can use those words in a way that it makes people just want to go, oh yeah, I want to press that button. I want to click through here. I want that. I want more information. I want to know more. So understanding all of that is really important. And the other thing, and the most important thing to remember, is that your website is really about your customer. It's not about talking about your business entirely on its own, separate to how it solves your customer's problem. So it's always, so when you're crafting it, remember your customer and remember how your business helps the customer. Think about, again, what their pain points are, how you service that. When we just stand there and just talk about ourselves or our business, you know, we've been here for 20 years and we make X, Y, and Z, it's very cold and it's very separated from our customer. It doesn't allow that opportunity to want to connect more or to engage more. It doesn't feel the customer, doesn't make the customer feel like they're essential to this business as such. So everything about your website, which while it's still a representation of your brand, obviously it's about how your brand helps the customer with their current problem or situation. So always think about that and tailoring your content to meet that need. When designing a website, we need to think about how we lay the site out to appeal to our customers as well. So we need to visually prioritise key elements. Most of the important info is big, it's bold, and it demands attention. Another way to prioritise key elements is to use colour. To organise your content. And I'm going to show you a couple of examples of how this is done well very shortly. The use of white space, or it doesn't have to be white these days either. It could be, you know, a lot of people use dark things on their computers and their devices. But the use of that empty space, I suppose, is a better word, that draws attention to important content. The use of call to action buttons or links, as I said, that encourage visitors to interact with your brand, and remembering how people naturally scan a website as well is a really great way to prioritise that information. Now, our natural scan, I'm going to see if I can explain this well using just my laptop. So when we scan something, when we scan a brochure or a website, that kind of thing, there's a lot of theory around this, but really the simple way is we scan in kind of like a Z-like fashion. So prioritising content in a way that has the most important elements within that Z-like fashion on a screen allows it easier for people to take in the information as they're scrolling through and to know how to interact with that. So I'll show you what I mean about that in a minute. I'll show you what that actually looks like on a real website. Okay, and now also thinking about the content that you're going to use on your website. What do you say? How do you do everything that we've just talked about and put it into words or video or something that people can engage with? So one of the things that you really want to do with your website is ensure that the product or service is identified instantly. People don't want to work hard to know what you're about. People won't work hard to know what you're about. We've got like 4 seconds to capture people's attention when they land on our website. And that includes the time it takes to load the website as well. So we don't have a lot of time to get people excited about our business. So we need to ensure that as soon as they land on the page, they've got a really good understanding that they know they're in the right place. And if you already have a website or have dealt with websites before, you might have heard of a thing called a bounce rate. And a bounce rate is when people jump on your website and jump off pretty much immediately without interacting with the website. we want to keep that bounce rate really low. And when it's high, it generally is a really good indication to me that they've come to the website for, thinking it's a site about something else. And then they get there and realise it's not. Or also it might take too long to get to the information that they want. It might load too slowly. These are all different factors. So we want to keep that really low. So making sure as soon as they land on the website, they know they're in the right place. Also outlining the features and benefits of your brand, essentially. If you sell a single product, it might be about the product itself, but generally it's about how your business supplies this product or this service in a way that's different to others, essentially. And that's the same with the unique selling point as well. So having that clearly identified as well. Like, why are you different? Why are you, explain how you're here for the customer, how you're providing this is going to be different to somebody else providing it. Another really great thing to include in your website is social proof. So social proof is in the way of reviews or testimonials. It works twofold. So one is Google really likes social proof, and it will measure your site in relation to how many people have, how many reviews you've received, things like that. So it's another indicator that it uses in its ranking system. And secondly, people like social proof. It's like the old word of mouth. I heard this business was awesome, so you should go and see them. It works the same way. And that's why there's, lots of different sites. Like if you're in tourism or something, you'll be familiar with TripAdvisor. Any review site where people can share about their experience with you is an example of social proof. And also including on your website some element of your story. And this is about, again, building that connection with your audience, with your customers. A little bit about how your business came about, what it stands for and represents. And I think that's one of the biggest things at the moment is that we're all looking for authenticity in a way. So sharing that in your story is a great way to build that rapport with your customers or would-be customers as well. All right, so that is at a very high level the things that you need to consider to make your website stand out in a crowded marketplace. Now, if you have any questions about that, as I said, please jump into the chat box and ask away because I'm happy to answer them. But what I want to do now is share with you how a couple of websites have actually done what I'm talking about. This is if I can get Zoom to do its thing for me. All right, so hopefully you can see this screen. So this is the Apple website, apple.com. Now, I'm going to see if I can, hold on, sorry, jumping between screens here. It works well when it works well, not so much when it doesn't. Okay, so this is the Apple website, and this is a really good example of how it's prioritised those key elements to engage its audience. So you can see, and also how it's got a really good you can see the brand identity or the personality of this brand simply through its website, the simplicity of it. You see how it uses colour and a lot of blank space or empty space to draw attention to the main element. You can see how it also puts front and centre who they are, what they're about. Like at the moment, I guess it's the joy of doing live webinars and working from home. It's a lot of distractions at times. Okay, so you can see how, the Apple website, at the moment, there's Black Friday coming up, so they've got their specials on, they're talking about it. But typically when you jump on the site, the first thing you land on is this section, which is about the 13 Pro. So you can see how they use the empty space to draw attention to the product that they are most focused on at the moment. You can see how they use language like OSO Pro, which is about, that's the different messaging and tone of voice that they're using to connect with their ideal customer. You can see, as we go down, you can see, using a different color, still keeping the website very simple, using the same kind of language, same kind of visuals. It's really about, this brand represents innovation. It represents, it's just so contemporary. Their use of color, their use of language, their use of really sharp imagery, all of that represents exactly what their brand is about. You also see with this website how they talk to people at the different stages of the sales funnel as well. So remember I talked about the sales funnel being, you've got the attract, the engage, and the conversion phase, okay? So when you design a website, the idea is that your first priority is to talk to those people who are already converted or don't take much convincing to be converted, essentially. They know what your brand represents, they know who you are, they know the kind of products you provide, they just want to be able to get to the point of purchase really quickly. So you can see here with the Apple site, anyone who is an Apple fan, anyone who likes the iPhone, who likes to keep up to date with the newest iPhone, you jump on this website and straight away it takes you, there you go. Here's the iPhone 13 Pro. It's beautiful. It's great. Buy now. But they also know that they're not always talking to people in that conversion phase. So you've also got the people who are in the engaged or the attract phase as well. So they've also got the option to learn more. If you're in that part of the funnel, you're not ready to buy. So you want that option to be able to get a little bit more information. So there it is there as well. So they're not putting front and center, here's all of this information that's trying to convince you to buy, because anyone who already wants to doesn't need that, and that's just really distracting to them. So that's how this is just a really great example of going, okay, we're talking to two people in two different parts of the funnel, and we're setting the site up in a way that's really easy for either of them to either just go, I'm ready, I know what I want, I'm going to buy, or I need a little bit more information. I need to learn more about this. And you can see the same as you go through the iPhone 13, not Pro. The same thing applies. But also, so this whole top section is made for those really ready to convert, and also for those in the engaged stage. As we go further down into the site, we have more information, which is more about, all the different products. Maybe you're not interested in the iPhone, maybe you want different Apple products. But set up the same way, always that opportunity to learn more if you're not ready to convert, but also the option to buy. As we get further down, no, this is going to be a liar at me now. I've changed it. But essentially, okay, this is showing. I didn't actually look at the rest of the site when I put this together this morning. But before today, they did have another section there, which was more if you're still in that attract phase. So, you really need more information. They gave you that option to explore Apple more. And really in this section down here, the TV Plus, you can jump in there and watch stories and things like that, which allow you to connect with the brand, which you're going to do if you're a fan of the brand, but also if you want to, if you're still in that phase of getting to know the brand and getting familiar with it. Another really good example of how design is used well, based on what we've talked about, so where people are in the sales funnel, understanding your brand, that kind of thing, is Xero. Any small business is probably familiar with Xero, which is accounting software. Now, you can see the way that they use colour. They use these different visual elements. They use that different font as well. The language they use, the words that they use, they're all about making it, really simplifying business for business owners. That's what, when I look at this website, that's the very first thing that I see. It's taking the hard work out of business. So the font type that they're using, for example, it's a little bit, how would I explain this? It's just that it's not really contemporary. It's not really sophisticated. It's a little bit quirky, if you like. And that combined with the use of the words accounting software, it's business but better. It just tells me that it's about the business owner. It's about making it easier for the business. Even the colours that are used. As a business owner, that's how I read that. Also, you can see how they cater for people in the different phases of the sales funnel as well. We've got exactly the same thing as on the Apple Store. If you need to learn more about Xero, if you're still in that attract or in that engage stage, you can find out all you need to know about Xero here. But if you're ready, you know about the brand, you know that it's what you want, you're ready to actually, hand over your money, you can just jump straight in and do that. Plans from $27 per month. So in a very, very simple banner, when you first open the website, it's talking to those very two different stages of the sales funnel and doing so in a way that's not intrusive. Okay, you can see as well, as we scroll down through the website, I use this colour to prioritise different graphics that come in. But also, you can see how as we go down, it's talking more and more to people further down the sales funnel. So those still in those very early stages. So the top part of this website is really about those ready to buy, without excluding those still needing more information. As you scroll through, you can understand more about how Xero works, how it will work for your business, what it does. So you've got these buttons, these tiles that you can press to find out more information going into. Using these tiles here, like for employed, for accountants and bookkeepers, it really easily breaks up who, in this case, Xero has different customers. They have the accountants and the bookkeepers, they have the small business owner. So this is a really simple, clear way of talking to those different audiences without alienating the other audience. And you can see more information as well, so you can access Xero at any time. It makes it feel like it's just really, really simple to use. And then here's the bottom of the page, and it's that same option, like just you've read the information now, you know what we're about, so just try it for free. There's no obligation. there's this option just to opt in and trial it. And by opting in as well, by putting your email address in, you're also signing up to receive marketing from them as well. So you're sharing a little bit of information about you that allows them to nurture you through the journey, and you're getting to trial the product if you're not quite convinced. If you still need that little bit of extra push, you get to trial it. Everybody gets to trial this product, but you can see how they use language and how they have laid it out on the website to make it feel like if you're not sure, just try it. So those are two, I believe they're two very good examples of web design that really has thought about. And of course, these guys have teams. They pay a lot of money to create these sites, but we can take these same principles and apply them to our own site. And not being afraid of putting this out there, essentially, not trying to hide our product or our service or our sales pitch behind a whole lot of words where we talk about who we are. We're really in an instant society, and we have so much information coming at us. We have access to any information we want. We have access to any type of business. We're not just, doing business with the small business in our own town. If we can very easily do it online, and while some people consider that a bad thing, it's not so much if we take that and use it to our advantage. So not being scared to put ourselves out there, not being scared to promote our product or our service, and not being scared to talk about why we are the people or the brand or the business that you want to do business with. Now I'm going to stop sharing because I think I've covered all of that. Does anyone have any questions about these two websites, or does anyone have anything they would like to add, or any experiences that they've had in regards to what I'm talking about? I'll take a moment if anyone has any questions. But basically, yeah, as I said, these are really great examples, and I use them. I know, like I said, that these two businesses, these two brands, they have a lot of money behind them to be able to create these things, but just thinking about these for how it applies to your own business. Okay, we have the technology available to us to be able to apply these principles, and it's just remembering what our brand is, who our brand is, why we're here, why we're doing what we're doing. It's understanding who our customer is and what their pain points are, how our business solves those pain points, understanding that. And then creating content that talks to those pain points as well. So, and that's whether it's on your website, whether it's through the homepage, the about page, that kind of thing, or even if it's through your blogs or things or additional content that you add to your website. Remembering those things. So, and then also the design as well. Your design is really important. Keeping it in line with what your brand is about. If you're a little bit more classical, keeping that classical theme. If you're a bit more contemporary, keeping that theme as well. But I didn't talk about the natural scanning habits. Let me just quickly go back to that because this is really important, I think. I'll share my screen again. There's a question that's just come in, and I will address that in a moment. Natural scanning patterns. Okay, so what I was talking about before is how we scan things like in a Z fashion. So I don't know if you can see this on my screen. I will just bring up the little spotlight so you can follow my cursor. Okay, so natural scanning patterns are Z, like this. So from top left to right, diagonally down to the left and across to the right again. That's how when elements are structured on the site in a way such as this website where we have the Xero logo in the top left, we have this green button over here, try Xero for free. We have core information in the center. Okay, this is all being set up in line with those scanning patterns. So at a glance, as soon as I land on this website, without thinking, without working hard, without putting any effort in, I can see exactly what this website is about. I can see exactly who this brand is about. I can gather the key information I need because all the key elements are aligned with those natural scanning patterns. As we go down, you can see how they continue applying that. So remembering that Z pattern, the simple act of, and I'm just going to say, I'm just assuming they've done this way. And given that they have teams of people dedicated to this, I'm sure that this is exactly what they're doing. But if they've just fluked it, then they've done well. But you can see just by having this title over here on the right-hand colour, that different colour, automatically you can take in all of that information just by that one little design change from the rest of these tiles. I can read at a glance all this information right here. So that's how we use those scan patterns in design. So putting those elements in a way that people can just easily digest the information, take it in and act on it as well. Now I'm just going to answer this question here. Okay. Oh, that's a bit of a curveball question. Okay, so we've got someone here who is talking about testimonials and reviews, but they're in the healthcare industry and they're not actually allowed to use these. Is there an alternative you are aware of? Thank you. Okay, I need to give that a little bit of thought as to what alternatives there are. My first thought off the bat is taking the reviews that you would get from people in person, taking their feedback, their commentary, that kind of thing, and tailoring your content around that. So if people talk about how you've, and now I want to be cautious as well, but if people talk about, how you've done a wonderful job, you've helped them through, you've helped them get better in some way or other, you can use their words in a way that's it's less using their words directly and more about talking about how your service actually achieves those results. So it's a little bit indirect. So that's my first thought. But it is a really good question. Now you've got me thinking. I'm going to think on that one and I'm going to come back to you about it because that's quite a challenge for anyone who is in the health industry. Alrighty, do we have any other questions? As always with the webinar, there's so much to cover and trying to explain all of these essential elements that you can use straight away in your business. But if you want to know more about designing a website, if you want to know how you actually do what I've just talked about, we have workshops upcoming with Business Station that talk about these things at length. They're 2-hour workshops. Same thing as the webinar, you can join live or you can get access to the recordings. It's actually where we go through practically how to do the exact things we're talking about. And if you are on our program, excellent. Thank you for joining us. If you're not on our program, Business Station provides digital solutions, which is only $44, gets you 3 hours of one-on-one advice and mentorship in regards to anything related to your digital concern, plus also access to workshops, etc., like this. So if you're not involved with that and you'd like more information about it, you can go to our website, which is businessstation.com.au. There's 3 S's in the middle, and you can access, about us, about who we are, what we provide, and also register for the program. We can look at anything relevant to your business. So if there's no more questions, I will leave you there. Thank you so much for your time. What I'm going to do for those of you who are joining me today is I'll put my email address in the chat box. So you can see that come up now. And if you've got any questions of how this applies to your specific business, please do feel free to reach out via email. Thank you all for your time. Have a great Wednesday.